Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are going to talk about inflection and derivation. As we all know, before we get into this business, we should know that morphology is the branch of linguistics that is concerned with the structure and formation of words, distinguishes between two primary types of morphological processes, derivation and inflection. These processes actually, while both involving the modification of word forms through the addition of affixes, serve fundamentally different linguistic functions and operate within distinct grammatical domains. Uh, Derivation typically refers to the creation of new words by adding affixes that often change the lexical category or meaning of the base word. For example, the addition of ness to happy, right, forms the noun happiness, illustrating how derivational morphology contributes to lexical expansion and semantic innovation. In contrast, on the other hand, let's say that inflection pertains to the modification of words to express grammatical relationships such as tense, number, aspect, mood, person, case, gender, and so on and so forth, without altering or without changing the word's core meaning or its syntactic category. For example, the verb walk, for example, can be inflected to walked, right? Or walks, indicating a change in tense or subject agreement. Typically, unlike derivation, inflection yields predictable systematic forms that are constrained by the syntactic and grammatical rules of a language. So, this distinction between derivation and inflection is crucial for understanding the architecture of word formation, the organization of the mental lexicon, and the interface between morphology and syntax. This actually this chapter uh, actually explores, let's say, the major differences between these two morphological processes in terms of function, maybe productivity, regularity, position relative to the base, sometimes semantic transparency, lexical versus grammatical roles, and some interface with phonology. So here we notice, after this brief introduction, we notice that here actually some analysis should be offered to the relationship between words and the paradigm. As we all know that the paradigm contains inflectionally related words. So as we said, like examples like nicely derived from nice, and so on and so forth. So here, if we look into this example, English inflection and morphology, like nouns that acquire se for the number distinction, like the bird, the birds, the noun phrases, uh, it reflects maybe the genitive level, possessive level, like the birds, song, maybe adjectives or adverbs which acquire er or est in the comparative and superlative respectively, like faster, fastest. With the verbs also we have inflectional levels like se, reflecting the third person singular present, like proves, proves. Ed, reflecting the past tense level, proved. Ing, the progressive or the present participle, is proving. And finally, the en, which reflects the past participle, has proven, let's say, was proven, right? So here we notice that the inflectional morphemes alter the form of the word to indicate certain grammatical properties. And these actually, our English has only eight inflectional morphemes. So these eight inflectional morphemes, along with the properties they indicate. So, for example, or except for the en, the forms we list in the table or in the information above are the regular inflections. So they are regular because they are the inflections added to the most frequent forms or verbs, nouns, adjectives, and adverbs to indicate grammatical properties. So number, tense, agree, let's say tense, aspect, and so on and so forth. These actually do indicate or reflect the grammatical properties. So here we should pay attention to the fact that these are the inflections that we add to new words coming into the language also, because these words do not have any canonical roots and they do not have the systematic inflectional or derivational mechanisms that reflect the behavior in the production level. So, for example, here, they are also the inflections that we add to new words coming into the language. So, for example, we add the S to the noun through pot to make it plural because through pot is new to the language, and all borrowed forms of words, let's say, take the most frequent plural marker, which is the S in English, because it has high frequency and it does solve the problem of these new words that do not have any lexical form or canonical root in the language. And this also applies to a variety of languages. Inflectional categories. The inflection is derivation versus derivation dichotomy. Here in this part, we talk about the dissimilarities between the inflection and derivation. Like the inflectional category, inflection has categories reflecting tense, like present tense, past tense, future tense, present perfect tense, present perfect, continuous tense, and so on and so forth, past perfect, and so on and so forth. So we notice that the inflectional categories are reflected under the notion, let's say, tense patterns. And this is also parametric, as we know, because in English, for example, we have these distinct and fine differences among the tense patterns of the language, while in Arabic, for example, we do not see or have any of these. Also, inflectional categories are syntactic in nature because at the spell out level, when we produce a sentence, it is not sufficient to say that a syntax can be sufficient or a sufficient element to organize the production of the sentence at the word order level. We have another level, further levels that actually modify our sentences and make sure that they have the proper spell out without any crashing. And this comes through the interface between morphology and syntax. So for morphology, it does not stop at the level of word order. Rather, it takes care of making the proper checking among the elements of the sentence. So, for example, when we say that it is I have, for example, I have an idea, or me have an idea, or mine have an idea, this fulfills the syntactic level because the syntactic level requires that we have a doer, which is I, and the verb, and the object, which is the idea. But with me have an idea, this example does not tell us that the sentence is grammatical. Why? It is not because of the syntactic crash, rather, it is because of the morphological crash, because there is no proper matching between the two elements, I and, let's say, I and have as a doer, I as a doer, having the syntactic feature, but doesn't have a morphological features. Inflectional categories here. Uh, so inflectional categories, let's say, can be can be expressed in terms of allomorphy. So, for example, when we have the dogs, mats, churches, we have the plural number sa, which is sa. It is inflectional because it reflects number, plural, i.e. So, but when we produce the sa in three different contexts, we find that sometimes it is sa as in cats, sometimes it is as in churches, and sometimes it is za as in dogs. So we notice that the inflectional marker se is expressed via allomorphy because se and is are allomorphy or allomorphies, allomorphs, sorry, of the morpheme se, which is the abstract number, let's say, number marker. This actually does not apply to derivations because in derivation we do not have any allomorphy pattern. So we have creator, we have teacher or er. Actually, we cannot say that they are allomorphs of a certain morpheme. So we have to be careful when we make a distinction between the inflection and derivation. We should bear in mind that inflectional markers are expressed via allomorphy, while derivational markers are expressed among or not via allomorphy. Okay, so here we have, of course, we have the inflectional levels. We have number, like singular, plural, dual. We have case like nominative, accusative, dative, genitive, ablative, locative, and so on and so forth. It tense, we have the present tense, the past tense, the future tense. And the aspect here, we have the perfective and non-perfective aspect. The mood, we have indicative mood, subjunctive mood, comparative, superlative. The voice, we have the passive, the active voice. And all these reflect the modality of the inflectional level. And finally, the negative or the polarity items, as in negative polarity items. Like in Japanese, kiru, cut, present, cuts, kir, ana, and kit, neg, pres, doesn't. So here we have negative polarity item that makes sure that all the ideas are expressed properly. The example here, where we have a kind of the agreement for inflectional categories, we have Latin, we have the girl in different case patterns at the vertical here level, nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative, right? Okay. And here we have the singular on the, let's say, at the horizontal level. We have the singular and the plural, which is number. So we notice here that the nominative girl, the singular, it is puella versus plural puellai, genitive puellai, plural puellarum, dative dative singular puellai, dative plural puellis, accusative singular puellam, accusative plural puellas, and finally ablative singular puella, and ablative plural it is puellis. Here, dear students, the idea that we should bear in mind is that this language believes in agreement of the derivative inflectional markers. So here we have bona puella. Bona puella, here we have a girl, puella, bona, which is good girl, and there is a kind of agreement. So puella is nominative and singular, and bona agrees here with puella in terms of a case, nominative, and is a number which is singular. But if we change the girl into plural, so it becomes puellai, it becomes the adjective bona becomes bonai, puellai. So we notice that here that there is agreement. There is agreement existing between the adjectives and the nouns in Latin, and this applies to Arabic. For example, when we say sama'un safiyatun, there is gender and number agreement, sama'un safiyatun. We have ma'un soften, right? So here gender agreement and number agreement. Also, we find that there is a kind of agreement between the noun and the adjective in Arabic and Latin, of course, at the number and case levels. So here we notice that the inflectional category, agreement markers. So there is a kind of agreement. The inflectional behavior of a word or a phrase is determined by the properties of nominal constituent to which it is closely related. So we have, for example, the boy walks. Uh, the boy walks. It is the controller, the boy, that determines the inflectional level of walk into walks. The boys walk. So here we have the boys, a plural marker. It is a plural, and we do not have any case, any agreement marker actually at the person level and the number level. So we have the boys walk. So we notice here that the inflectional categories, right, make sure that the properties have a kind of agreement and the inflectional level. So are there any derivational categories in walk-walker variation? So instead, we have derivational patterns or formations or meanings, right? We have derivational categories that cannot be expressed, as we said, in terms of allomorphy. So we have, for example, shin, we have mint, we have al, and so on and so forth. So here we notice, dear students, that on the other hand, the English derivation morphology or derivational morphology, as we said, it is the process of creating new forms of words, meanings for parts of speech, but they are morphologically related because we add suffixes and prefixes in the language in general. So it involves one or more changes for form. It can involve prefixes, as in saw, resaw, suffixes, saw, sawing, sawer, sawable. Another type of derivation, uh, while not visible, is at least audible. So it involves a change in the position of the primary stress in a word. So here, when we look into the examples here, we notice that derivation can be maintained via different tools coming from phonology. So here, for example, we have permit, which is noun, contact, noun, perfect, noun, convert, noun. We notice, dear students, here that the stress makes sure and is here to make sure that it does change the part of speech. So it is a part of the derivational processes. So here, permit as a noun, permit as a verb, contact as a noun, contact as a verb, perfect as a noun, perfect as a verb, convert as a noun, convert as a verb. The moral of this section is that stress or suprasegmentals can be a part of the derivational processes. In some derivationally related word pairs, only a feature to maintain and to create a good setting for derivation. Sometimes it is not derivational. It is the let's say. Okay. So sometimes to maintain this derivational change, the feature of the final consonant changes. One of the manifestations is voicing. So advice is a noun. Advise is a verb. Belief, believe, mouth, breath, breathe. So here, if we want to be aware of the derivational dimension, we notice that one of these ways is to voice the final sound. So the advice, it is a noun that ends with sa, but at the same time, if we want to change it into a verb, this sa becomes ze. So here we notice, and we should notice that it is a change. So we have sa becomes za, fa becomes va, tha becomes da, tha becomes the in breath breathe. Sometimes adding a derivational morpheme induces a change for the stressed vowel. So here we have divine. So divine, it is the second stress, vine, that bears, this syllable bears the stress. But if we add ity, as in divine, divinity, right? Huh? Divine, divinity, we find that the stress changes. So we have divine, divinity, the change level, the stress level changes. So we have profane, profanity, serene, serenity. So we find that there is a kind of stress location change, and this stress location renders or leads to a change in the derivational status of the word forms. Okay, in other cases, for example, the addition of the suffix, it triggers command a change in the final consonant of the root. So, for example, here, the alveolar consonant becomes palatal with some voicing. So here we have, for example, the alveolar consonants like t and sa in part phase. When we add l, partial, and then this changes or causes a change in the final sound. So t becomes the palatal sh, is a kind of process of palatalization, facial. So t becomes sh and sa becomes sh. And this actually change is triggered by the addition of the suffix, as in part, partial, or facial. Okay. Seize, seizure, remit, remission. So here we find that all the palatal alternatives work together for the search of better derivational level. In multisyllabic words, such which with a stressed tense vowel, palatalization may be accompanied by relaxing of the vowel, shortening of the vowel. So we have here collide, right? Elide, we add we add with a palatalization collagen, and it becomes collagen. So we have two processes. Process one is collagen or collagen, right? And then collagen. So the addition of yin, all right, renders the dah to become ja, palatalization, and a shortening of the vowel. Collide becomes collagen. So you have two short vowels. Elide, right? Iligen. Elide, iligen, the same. We have a kind of palatalization motivating and putting or pushing the word to have or to maintain to have a kind of short vowels instead laxing of the vowel of that vowel. Sometimes the addition of derivational affix requires a change for the stress pattern with consequential changes for pronunciation of the vowels. In most cases, we have the unstressed vowel become as schwa. So we have telegraph, where the first syllable is stressed, telegraph, right? But when we add telegraphy, we do not say telegraphy, we say telegraphy. So we notice that the stress changes or moves to the next syllable, and this change in the location of stress is due to the addition or the suffixation of e, telegraph, telegraphy, regal, regalia, and tutor, tutorial, and tutor is tutorial, and all these changes actually fall in the service domain of other courses, right? طيب. Okay. Now let's move to this one, another case or another example of a kind of phonologically or morphologically motivated phonology. In still other cases, we find suffixes or suffixation, the stress migration with change of vowel quality and change of consonant. So we have approve, we have different processes. Approve, we add it for the sake of the noun. Approve with the becomes approbation. Becomes what? Approbation. So this suffixing, right? First, it causes stress migration and change وبالتالي change of the vowel quality وكمان إنه الconsonant changes. Approve becomes approbation. So nova in the no nova in the spell out here. So here, if you notice, we have a kind of derivational, right? English allows to change the words part of speech without any change أحيانا. So as a result, identical forms may belong to two different parts of speech, like the verb saw. So this saw is too dull, this noun, and don't saw the word, which is a verb. So other examples like hit, buy, dot, autograph, brown bag, which can all be both verbs and nouns. So change of the part of speech here without any corresponding formal change is called conversion. Actually, the word saw as a noun and the word saw as a verb does not make any problem regarding the let's say regarding the change or the internal change of the word. And here in the case at hand, there is no change. Thanks a lot and see you next time.